This is a slab door project. I've got a lot of tips I want to share on this video. The owner wanted to keep the frame, so we had to put slab doors in. We couldn't take out the frames. It's an older house, so I think it's like 100 years old or something. And the house settled so that the floor is not level. It's sloping down that way, and so is the top door jamb on that bedroom. So since the floor is sloping down this way, here it's pretty much level. It's not exactly level, so I had to cut the door at a slight angle on the bottom and the top, just because these old door jambs are all, wonky in several ways. Like this one here, the side of the door frame is twisted like that, and it also is the frame is going this way, and it's almost an inch difference from top to bottom. So because the floor is sloped down and the frame is sloped down, you can see how the door, the new slab door we put in, it's not exactly even. That's because I had to cut the top of it. Another trick I found to hang in a slab door is pick where you want your hinges. There's standardized numbers like 5 inches to the center on the top one, and 10 inches to the center on the bottom one, and then the middle one just goes in between if it's a heavy door, halfway. In this case, the owner didn't want to use the same hinge locations, so we filled that up with Bondo, sanded it. It took about 3 applications before we could get it filled in, and then we put in the hinge down below here. The trick I found to getting these hinges to fit properly, a few tricks. First, you mortise these hinges into the door. Then you bring the door to the frame, take apart the top hinge, and mount the 1/2 of the top hinge. And then you put that hinge together with the one that's on the door. And the key is getting this one in the right place. As far as this distance goes, just think about it. If you go too far this way, this part of the door is going to butt into this and not close properly. So if you look here, this distance here is approximately same as the gap in here. But what I found also key to help you finesse it is the hinges come with short and long screws. I think there were 2 inches and 1 inch. So I used the 1-inch screws first, and if I had to move it a little bit, well, first I would just I'd use 2 screws and then leave a fresh hole, so that if I did have to move it, say I have to move it over like an 1/8 inch that way, then I have a fresh hole here. As far as these guys later, even though it's only 1/8 inch, the screw can migrate into the old hole that was off center. So what you got to do there to fix that is you either drill a pilot hole with a small bit, or you got to be real careful when you just start the screw in there. And the long screws, it came with 4 long screws per hinge, so I ended up putting 2 long screws in the top hinge and 2 long screws in the middle hinge, and the bottom one's just short screws. But here's the trick I want to get back to is, so you hang this hinge, or you screw it on once you get it right, and you close the door and it closes. Actually, no, hold on a second. You get this screwed on with 2 short screws, let's say, or one short screw there. And then you just close the door and see if it's going to work. The first time I did it, this started binding, so I knew I had to move this hinge out that way. As far as the height goes, you're supposed to have an 1/8 inch gap up here on the top of the door. So you just shove your door up to the top and mark it with a pencil, the bottom of the hinge, an 1/8 inch below that, and that's where you go for height. And I found a good trick. Once you get the top one on, you just go down here and you move the door in and out until these ones look about right, and you put 1 screw in each one of those, and then you close it to see if it's right. In fact, you only really need to put a screw in the bottom one, not the middle one, to see if it closes the door. Once you got it to close good, then you can put your 2 long screws in the top and 2 long screws in the middle and just screw it down. That's the key I found to hanging these slab doors. I watched a bunch of videos on hanging doors, and I couldn't find one specifically dealing with some of the complexities I had in this situation, like over here. How in the heck? That's the hinge side there. The door frame is angled like that, I was telling you. It's about 1 inch difference from the top to the bottom. So just picture if you got a ridiculous crazy angle like that. How are you going to hinge a door like that to close when that side is level, which it is? So what I just realized was, if you cut the door to fit the frame this way, you take measurements there, say this is 32, and let's say this is 31.5, which I think is what it was, and that's 32 up there. Then there's play with wood. If you're dealing with a metal frame door, that's a different story. But with wood, there's play, even when you put the screws in. How you put the screws in, there's going to be some wiggle. So the 1/2 inch difference, or whatever it is, it's a 1/2 inch or 1 inch from top to bottom. The amount of difference that it was there was enough to not to be like if it was crazy angle like that. Another thing so the way I did them was I did this bedroom door first because it was the easiest. Then I went to this door, which was the hardest. I had to take the door out 3 times to recut it. 3 or 4 times. And I did the bathroom door last. What was I going to say now? Just 1 second. So yeah, on the first door that I did, it also had the frame door jamb leaning down. The same thing with the floor. So I had to cut the bottom. You want to cut the bottom so it looks even. But here you can tell that's not even. And the reason is because when you open the door, it's going to catch up here. So I had to have a bigger gap down there so it could open all the way. Same thing on this side. So there's so many dynamics to try and fit this thing in here. It was almost I had to do a bunch of things in this house, and I did the easy stuff first and kept watching videos and worked my way into it. And I want to give thanks to God, glory to God, for helping me to do a good job. One other issue that we had here in this door, the door stop. You can see here we had to reposition it. And so what we did is you just score it with a knife, then you work in there with a pry bar, screwdriver, whatever, gently. I had to do the top one too. And so what we did is we closed the door until it was in the right position for the latch, because it's a little different on the top and the bottom. It was wonky. That's why we had to change this whole thing. So once we got the latch in the right position, we just brad nailed the door stop where the door was sitting there, and we left a little bit of a gap near the hinge, or pardon me, the door strike plate, which is one of the videos I saw. The guy was showing how to put in this door stop, and he was saying to put it in up tight on there and at the bottom, and a little bit of a gap in by the door stop, or the door latch. So it was like a huge pile of stuff. So anyways, just a review with all the complexities here. The first thing I did was to cut the door to fit this way. Then I dealt with the bottom and the top. I wasn't sure if I should cut just the bottom, because one video I watched, the guy says you cut the bottom of the door. But in this case, you can't. You cannot get away from cutting the top of the door because of the slope. So I had to cut some slope there. Anyways, it turned out fine. As you look at the door, you can't see any problems with reveal, other than, like I was saying here, you see it's narrower there than there. Okay, just a review again. You cut the door to fit this way. So it was down here 31.5, let's say, up there 32. And it was gradual pretty much most of the way, bit of a curve in it. Let's say you did have a curve. Well, you just mark it at every foot is what I did. So say it was 31.5 down here, 31 and 5/8 there, 31 and 7/8 there, 32 there. So if there was a curve, you could just follow that curve and plane it. But I ended up just using a straight edge. Tools also are important for cutting doors. I don't think a table saw is not practical. The guys that I watched, they got this, I'm not sure what they call these saws that cut doors, but they come with a rail system so that the saw glides upon the rail without touching the door. I went to Home Depot and saw Milwaukee had a setup like that. But you have to buy a particular kind of saw, and I didn't want to spend $500 for that just for doing these doors. Maybe I'll do them later and buy them in the future. But so what I did is I MacGyvered it. I found a long straight edge. Actually, it was a curtain rod, and I put some Tyvek paper on the bottom of my saw to make it slide easier and taped it on, and it worked out good. So yeah, I think that covers most of what doing these the hardware. That was easy. It's pretty standard. You just drill your hole there, put a 1-inch hole there. I use a spade bit, and these guys are easy peasy. I just copied the heights on all of them. Here's what I did to keep myself from doing things backwards. I just drew out a sketch. Bedroom door, that's the first one I did. It says jamb is not level. Has a 5/8 gap there. And then I measured the same thing on the bottom. The frame of the door is 32 inches. First hinge is 8 inches down. There's the height of the hinges that we establish where they go based on the patches that we put in, because he didn't want to put them in the patch material. Another thing I did too was, for when I cut the door, was to measure the height of the frame. They're all pretty close to 80 inches, but some of them are a little different. This one here, this is the office door. On this side it was 79 and 7/8. That's the hinge side. Oh no, this is the hinge side. Looking on the inside, sorry. And this side was 79 3/4. And there's how I did the measurement. See, 32, 31 and 7/8, 31 3/4, 31 and 5/8, 31 1/2. And the same gap off the level down in the bottom and the top. And so, like I said, I cut the sides to fit first, and then I worked on the the angles on the top and the bottom. It's better to cut 2 or 3 times instead of cutting it too short the first time, or you got to get a new door. So I took my time and I reduced my hourly rate on this because I wasn't fully set up. I don't have like the saw I was telling you about, and I just wanted to do it right and carefully and slowly. So there's the bathroom door drawing. It's pretty much the same. 80 inches there, 80 3/8 on that side. Floor is approximately level, even though it is, I still had to cut both of them, say a 1/4 inch angle, or wherever it was. So I find it helpful to make a little drawing when you get something really complex like this, so you know which way to cut it. Otherwise you can get, if you got any kind of shade of dyslexia, you're going to cut it backwards. What I did was bondo where the strike plates go, and then I just took the 1-inch spade bit and drilled the hole accordingly where it's supposed to go, and then you put the strike plate on. These screws are long enough that they reached into the wood past the dried bondo, but I'm pretty sure this bondo is good for holding screws. So that's another thing that we did on. Oh yeah, the owner told me the house was built in the 1930s, so that's why we got all this weird stuff going on here. I'll show you how this door closes. Same thing as the other side, as it's angled. Hi Rigby. He's helping me in the project, big dog. And you can see the door at the top here, how it gets narrower there. So it was a whole lot of things to have to change and cut, but it closes perfectly now. About the doorknobs here, these ones are high quality. From my understanding, you go to Home Depot, you got Defiant at the bottom. Quickset and Schlag are kind of neck and neck in my opinion. I don't really know what's better. I think Schlag's a better one. And then this one is called, Baldwin, and it's a really high quality doorknob. So there you go.